make his remarks.
So hi, good afternoon. I'm just going to take a slightly different facet on this whole retail growth structure. And let me just start by asking people here, how many of you have made a will? Don't answer. Just think of it in your own minds. And I would bet that number here in this very distinguished audience, even in this audience, I suspect the number would be low double digits. In the general population, I can tell you it's a rounding off number. India's richest man died without leaving a will. It's not very difficult to understand why people don't write wills, and I'm going to connect this up with retail. Nobody likes contemplating death, right? It's not a pleasant thing to do. But one of the things that COVID has done for us, it has brought us face to face with our own sense of mortality. And it has brought focus on a lot of things. And one of the basic infrastructural things that it has brought focus on is succession. So just take my example, for example. If I was to die today, then as per the personal law that governs me, which is the Hindu Succession Act, 1/3 would go to my spouse and 1/3 would go to both of my children. That is, if I'm a lazy person, I don't want to exercise my freedom of choice, but I do want to exercise my freedom of choice. So what have I done? I have said, like a lot of people do, I have said that when I die, my spouse will inherit it. She will be the successor. Only if she predeceases me, then my children will get 50% each. Right? Now that thing I can exercise only by writing a will. I cannot do it otherwise. Whichever way I exercise it, have I done it based on my personal law or by writing a will? Either ways, my successors would have to go through a long, tedious, expensive, what is called a tariq pe tariq process to be able to actually become the successors. So sure, I have nominated my wife, my spouse as a nominee, and that would be an easy and a quick and economical way for her to get access. So that's a great, nomination is something which is a very made for India solution that we found, and we found quite some time back. But there is one very severe limitation of nomination. And that severe limitation is this, that the nominee only gets it as a trustee for the eventual successors. So even though my spouse would get an easy, quick access to the assets, she would still have to go through the long, tedious, expensive tariq pe tariq process that we spoke about. There, of course, is only one exception to this rule, and that is in the Life Insurance Act. That was amended in 2015. That provides that my spouse, and my spouse is the nominee in my life insurance policy, there she will get it as a successor, and she is not accountable to my children for that. So except for that, nomination actually is just an easy way to get access. Otherwise, you're still stuck with the court process. In fact, it might add a point of friction because, the nominees and successors could be different. So that's an additional friction point. All of us have heard issues about problems between successors. Now you would have problems between successors and nominees. And, one expression of this tedious succession problem is also this mountain of unclaimed assets that we have. I mean, people from the industry are here, so I'm sure they are aware of the figures. But by some accounts, the figures of unclaimed dividends, unclaimed shares, unclaimed provident fund, all this is 1,60,000 crores. That's right, you got that right. It's 1,60,000 crores. I mean, that is the kind of number that exists. So that's a basic flaw in the infrastructure that supports retail investors' growth, or even the challenge. It's one of the bigger challenges before the retail investor, to have a proper succession law. And I think that is where, as an association, we had come out with this white paper. This is called Reimagining Nominations, Making Succession Smoother and Simpler. This was written by Mr. Pramod Rao. He is the Group General Counsel of ICICI Bank. Of course, he wrote this paper in his personal capacity. And this paper has a foreword by Mr. K.V. Kamath. I think all of you know who he is. He also released this white paper. And you know, what this white paper has recommended is a series of changes in the law that would make nominations a third way of success, a third way of succession. So today you could have succession through the personal law. You could have succession obviously by writing a will, which unfortunately not many people do. Or third, a very easy, economic and a quick way, which was nomination. It also makes many other recommendations, and in the interests of time, I am just going to give some of them. I mean, a centralized reporting of death claim, centralized death claim processing, you know, a proactive outreach by, I mean, why should the investee companies wait for the nominees to come in? Why not have, and I think Nitin spoke about the account aggregator framework, and that can really aid in all that. Or the alternate nominee, what I want, what I have done, what I want to do through my will. First my spouse, if my spouse predeceases me, then my children. That why not be able to do through the nomination process. Or another important issue, nomination for situations of incapacitation. I think unfortunately it's been happening for quite some time. But of course, the primary recommendation in the white paper is to make nomination this third leg of succession, and that makes this whole process of succession less, we have this ultra modern capital market infrastructure and ultra modern banking infrastructure, and that exists side by side with this huge amount of it just does not make sense. We need to do something about this, and we need to improve the ease of living of investors, of citizens actually. Why just investors? Okay, we need to give them the freedom in this 75th year of our independence. We need to give them the freedom to choose their own successor in an easy, economical and quick manner. We need to give them the freedom to be freed from the tyranny of their personal laws. And I think people sitting in this room have the firepower to be able to start off the changes in law that are required for this, and this will have a big impact on the growth of retail investor. It's not as tangential as probably people think. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a less spoken about aspect, I think, of investor awareness. When we usually tell people, make sure your nominations are in place, that's not too easy either, because there are multiple forums to which you need to go and update it. So, definitely a useful point, sir. Can I request Dhirendra?